Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to go over the best way to use Hyatt's Category 1 to 4 award certificates. If you are a fan of the World of Hyatt program, chances are you have a World of Hyatt credit card. And if you have a World of Hyatt credit card, every anniversary of keeping this card open, you get yourself a Category 1 to 4 free night award certificate. This to me is a pretty sweet deal because the World of Hyatt card has a $95 annual fee, but it's very unlikely that you're going to be redeeming this award certificate for under $95. So as long as you remember to use it, there's a high likelihood that you're going to end up coming out ahead. There are more ways to earning yourself a Category 1 to 4 certificate than just keeping the card open for 1 year. If you spend $15,000 on the card, you get yourself another free night award certificate of a Category 1 to 4. Or if you end up hitting 30 elite nights within the World of Hyatt program, you get yourself another Category 1 to 4 award certificate. This can help sway your decision if you happen to have two different properties that you're debating about staying at. Because if you end up seeing a Hyatt Regency property that you've stayed at multiple times, or that ends up being something like a JDV property that you've never stayed at before, well, now you know if you do end up staying there, this can help you get yourself even closer to getting yourself another Category 1 to 4 award certificate. I think that most people end up just getting their 1 to 4 award certificate from having the World of Hyatt credit card. Now, I've seen a lot of complaints over the last year about people being very frustrated when it comes to redeeming these award certificates at properties that they actually want to stay at. And I will agree that Hyatt has moved many of their popular Category 4 properties up to now being a Category 5, making it so that you can't redeem your award certificate for these properties, which is very frustrating. A few former Category 4 properties that I visited that I really enjoyed staying at were the Eliza Jane out in New Orleans, which went from being a Category 4, but it's now a Category 5. The Park Hyatt in Istanbul, which also went from being a Category 4, now bumped up to a Category 5. And then the Thompson Hotel in Madrid, which went from being a Category 4 all the way up to a Category 6. Which, if I'm being honest, that property is really nice and probably deserves to be a Category 6. But it doesn't still end up making it annoying that this ended up being a property where I used to be able to redeem a free night award certificate at, now no longer I can. But having said all that, this doesn't mean that you can't still redeem these Category 1 to 4 certificates at properties that are decent and can also give you good value. The properties that I'm going to name in this video are going to be either ones that I've stayed at, ones that I'm soon to be staying at, or ones that I've looked into staying at, but I just haven't planned out how to get over to that destination yet. When I look at the international properties, I think that there's still a lot of good options. However, when I look at the domestic properties, the options are not the greatest. A property that I want to stay at is the Andaz in Savannah, Georgia. Now, Georgia is a state that I've never visited, but I do want to travel to, and I would love to go out to both Atlanta and Savannah. Andaz are some of my favorite hotels within the Hyatt portfolio. They have a really cool swag to them, and I've never been disappointed when staying at an Andaz property. If I'm going to be completely honest, the Andaz in Savannah is probably the only 1 to 4 category property that I haven't stayed at in the US that I'm kind of excited to want to travel to. The other ones I'm going to be naming are going to be ones that I think you could redeem these at these places and get yourself a good stay, but they're not something that really excites me. Like, I've heard good things about the Hyatt Regency in Grand Cypress, Florida, and also I know people who've stayed at the Hyatt Centric out in the French Quarter in New Orleans. That's something that I guess if you end up going for Mardi Gras and you can get yourself a balcony, it could end up being a decent property to be able to stay at as well. There is also the Hyatt Regency Boston Harbor, which looks like a decent property. I'm from Massachusetts, so when I do travel back to Mass, I typically stay with either friends or family. But if for some reason I don't end up staying with either one of these, then I may end up staying at this property. The Ambassador in Chicago is one that has many mixed reviews on. There's a lot of people who love it, and tons of other people call it trash. Although I travel a decent amount around the US, I've realized that when I do travel around the US, I'm either staying at Hyatt houses and Hyatt places or properties that are above a Category 4 hotel. I did stay at the Hyatt Place in Waikiki, which is now a Category 4 hotel, and I didn't think that was a bad property at all. Yes, it is a Hyatt Place, but you do end up getting yourself some really high views to be able to overlook the ocean, and then also you're only walking distance away from the beach and the ocean as well, so the location is fantastic. I really enjoyed my stay at the Tommy Hotel in Austin, Texas. It's in the same building as the Thompson Hotel, so when you just go up the elevator, there is one way where you go to Tommy rooms, and then the other way where you go to Thompson rooms. But you still end up getting the same rooftop pool that's out there. You also get yourself the same bars and gym and all the other different amenities. So if you just want the better room, you can go with the Thompson. But the Thompson Hotel is a higher category, whereas the Tommy Hotel is just a Category 4. And you're just walking distance away from 6th Street where there's all these different live bands and music being played. It's a ton of fun, and this is probably my favorite Category 1 to 4 property within the entire USA. I also stayed at the Hyatt Regency out in Dallas, And I remember that property having a very solid breakfast. But I don't think that there's a ton to get excited about when it comes to redeeming your Category 1 to 4 award certificate within the US. Sure, there are some properties that you can redeem it for where it's not going to end up being bad value, but there's not going to be ones you're going to end up being overly excited at when it comes to redeeming those award certificates in the US. Now let's look at some properties that are overseas. And I think that this is where these certificates end up shining, because what I believe Hyatt does when it comes to moving their categories of their hotels is they go based off of where these award redemptions are being done most frequently. Since less people overseas have Hyatt credit cards and Hyatt points, and there's probably less award redemptions at these properties overseas, which in all likelihood will end up making it so that the categories of these properties are going to end up staying at lower ones for longer based off of supply and demand. So let's look at a few of these that I stayed at in the last couple of years. The first one is going to be my most recent Category 4 hotel that I stayed at out in Europe, and this is the Hyatt Regency in Paris. I like this property a lot. There are not many skyscrapers in Paris, but this is one of them that allows you to get yourself really good views of the city. In my room, I was able to wake up to look out at the Eiffel Tower every single morning, and also before I would go to sleep, I'd be able to see the Eiffel Tower glowing every single night. I know that there's many people who get annoyed when it comes to climbing up Hyatt's ladder and then getting themselves a club access pass and realizing that there's very few properties in America where you can actually redeem that pass at. But out at the Hyatt Regency in Paris, they do have a club lounge, and it's up on the top floor and has a pretty good selection of appetizers and drinks. The bar right beside the club lounge was packed almost every single night I was there. That can be a cool spot to hang out if you don't want to leave the hotel, or a nice place to pregame before going off into the night in Paris. I have noticed that this property has become more difficult to book when it comes to with points, so something tells me this property will probably end up moving up to a Category 5 pretty soon. So if you can and you're traveling to Paris, book this property while it's still at its lower award price, because the cost to stay at this hotel ends up being somewhere along the lines of like 300 to 400 euros a night. So this can definitely end up being a solid deal when it comes to redeeming your Freedom Award certificate. Now let's look at the land down under. The Hyatt Regency in Sydney is a property that I stayed at when I traveled to Australia earlier this year. This is for sure a property that I'd recommend to stay at, and this is where I redeemed my 1 to 4 category award certificates at. You get a beautiful view of Darling Harbour, and you're literally just right across the street from me. So all you gotta do is cross the street and then you're at the bridge. This property also has a rooftop bar and a club lounge that has a variety of different drinks in there. It's funny because there was beers that I was drinking at the club lounge for free, and then I wanted to check out the rooftop bar, went up there, and they were selling the exact same beers for like 11 Australian dollars. So I pre-gamed at that lounge and saved myself quite a bit of money. The breakfast spread at this hotel is massive, and they have an excellent omelet station. I think the reason why this property doesn't get talked about a ton is because it's all the way out in Australia, and not many Americans who are reviewing these different properties go all the way to Australia and then end up staying at this property. If I go back to Sydney, I will 100% stay at this property. I can't think of a single negative about it. The points price is good, it's in an excellent location. What more could you ask for? This property may not be the highest cost when it comes to dollar amount, so the value for the certificate can end up getting higher value at other properties, but I promise you, if you end up redeeming it at this property, you're not gonna end up being unhappy. I can't think of a Hyatt Regency that I've stayed at that I've liked better than this one. Next, let's jump over to Asia. And again, like the other two properties, we're gonna be looking at a Hyatt Regency, and this is going to be the Hyatt Regency in Tokyo. Now, don't mix this up for the Hyatt Regency in Tokyo Bay. That one is way out of the way, and for people who want to go to Tokyo Disney, this one is the Hyatt Regency in Shinjuku. Now, I've talked to other people who stayed here and also read different reviews about people's feelings about staying at this property, and there's been a lot of mixed reviews, but for myself, I enjoyed my stay here. This is the first property that I stayed at for my first time visiting Tokyo, and when it comes to location, I don't think you can get a better location than this property. You are literally right above the subway station. So as soon as you walk out of the building, you go downstairs and then immediately you're at the subway. It is impossible to miss and incredibly convenient. When you first enter the property, there are these gargantuan chandeliers hanging above your head that are beautiful to look at. The view from your room will either be a nice lookout at Tokyo or from the very well kept up park that's right across the street from you. The Hyatt Regency Tokyo also has a lounge, although the time I was staying there, they were doing construction, so we weren't able to access the room where the lounge is, and they just put us in the basement instead. I would say that the staff here was great, but I feel like every place you go to in Japan, the staff is just gonna end up being great. Now, I also stayed at the Park Hyatt Tokyo, which was noticeably better, but I wouldn't mind staying at the Hyatt Regency Tokyo again, and definitely wouldn't mind redeeming one of my 1 to 4 category award certificates at this property. Now, you may be sick of hearing me talk about Hyatt Regencies, so let's move away from Hyatt Regencies and look at my favorite brand within the Hyatt portfolio, and these are going to be the Thompson Hotels. And one that I would recommend would be the Thompson in Playa del Carmen. All of the Thompson hotels that I have been in have felt like very upscale hotels. They don't cost as much as, say, a Park Hyatt, but you get a similar feel as being in a Park Hyatt. Now, I know there's probably some people out there who will argue that comparison, but when I've been in a Thompson hotel, I feel like a king. The staff is beyond wonderful. Whatever you need, they figure out how to get it done. This hotel has a massive rooftop pool, but if you want to go to the beach or just be around a quieter pool, you can also go over to the other Thompson hotel that's right on the beach that you get access to. Now, the Thompson Beach House is a higher category, but I found that what I've saw between the two properties, I like the other Thompson better, and it's also cheaper. The food was incredible, the drinks are fantastic, you are in the middle of everything in Playa del Carmen. The only reason why you may not want to redeem your category 1 to 4 certificate here is because the cost to stay at this hotel typically isn't very high. So if you're looking for a high cents per point, then there's definitely end up being more properties that can give you a higher cents per point than the Thompson in Playa del Carmen. I've even seen on quite a few occasions where if you pay for 2 nights, they'll give you the 3rd night for free. But even though this property isn't very expensive, it has been one of the most fun properties that I've ever stayed at, and one that I would definitely recommend to anyone who's visiting Mexico. Now, those properties that I just listed are ones that I've stayed at. I want to look at a few other ones that I haven't stayed at that look pretty nice and that I hope to be able to stay at sometime in the next couple of years. 2 I'm going to name are going to be the Park Hyatt out in Argentina and also the Park Hyatt in Jakarta. Both of these are category 4 properties, and the Park Hyatt brand is the highest level of properties when it comes to Hyatt's portfolio. So if you've never stayed at a Park Hyatt before and you also don't have a lot of Hyatt points, but you've been able to collect yourself a few night award certificates and you happen to be traveling to one of these destinations, this can end up being a great way to be able to redeem those to see what it feels like to be at Hyatt's top level properties. I've heard rave reviews about the Park Hyatt in Jakarta, but it doesn't seem that many Americans have stayed at this property because most Americans who travel over to Indonesia tend to just visit Bali. Now, there are definitely way more properties that I could list, but I'm not going to name every single property that's within a category 1 to 4 that can end up being good value to redeem your certificate at or a ton of fun. Just know that although these certs have become less valuable here in America, there is a ton of cool places you can redeem them overseas. So get your passport ready and redeem these certificates for an awesome trip. But hopefully you enjoy this video. Let me know in the comment section down below, what is your favorite place to redeem your category 1 to 4 award certificate within the World of Hyatt program? Now, if you happen to have any questions, you can drop that down in the comment section down below. I'll do the best I can to answer it. If you happen to be interested in any cards, check out my links in the description box down below. If you do decide to use any of my links, it does really help out the channel, and I'll be incredibly thankful for your support. And if you happen to really like this video, do me a favor. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, share this video, and have a beautiful rest of your day.